There are countless beings that carry a spark flitting across the countless stars of the multiverse. Merfolk from distant seas, terrifying, hungering abominations, and even tiny, nibbling mice. These planeswalkers come not from the pages of WotC's own stories, but from the imaginations of the Magic the Gathering community. Over on my Discord server, I've started doing creative writing contests, with the winners being featured here on the channel in a video. The prompt for this contest was, create a character bio for an OC non-human planeswalker. Humans by far have the most representation on Planeswalker cards, which is a bit of a shame since the multiverse of Magic has such a diverse ecosystem filled with all sorts of sentient life. That was the only real stipulation. Users of the Discord were given 3 weeks to present their submission, and while custom cards representing their Planeswalker were appreciated, they were not required. The contest ended on Sunday, and I've spent the better part of the last day or so reading, rereading, and judging the entries I've received. With all of that out of the way, here are the top 3 entries for this contest, 2 of which I'll be paraphrasing for convenience, and I certainly hope you'll enjoy them. First up, in 3rd place, we have Gam's submission, Alelakios. Hailing from the ocean world of Idor, Alelakios, whom we will be calling Al from now on, is a fully aquatic merfolk and the oldest of 9 siblings. His community was one of miners and craftsmen, and he lived most of his early life near underwater caves which were full of rare minerals, the most precious of which being Polahaku, a hard, bronze-colored gem that had the ability to store magical spells within it. Al himself would become adept at magic, learning his family's craft and becoming skilled at casting protective enchantments. By the time Al was 30, a stranger paid a visit to his undersea community. A strange being with a single metal arm. This stranger, Tezzeret, would visit time and time again over several years, exchanging various odd items for the Polahaku gems. 10 years after this stranger's first appearance, another stranger appeared, one inquiring about Tezzeret, and attempting to convince the merfolk to trade with him instead. The community, wary, rejected this new visitor's offer, and the visitor, in turn, transformed into a massive dragon and attacked, boiling the ocean around them. Trapped and in pain, Al's latent spark ignited, and he would planeswalk away to another world, Illuvion. Here, Al tended to his wounds and enchanted some pebbles he found to prepare for whatever he might encounter. Not long after, he was visited by another planeswalker, the mad spirit talker Abian, who teased and tormented Al. Though Abian was irritating and often incoherent, Al was able to glean 2 things from his ramblings. Al was a planeswalker and could return home, and he also learned the name of the stranger who attacked his people, Nicol Bolas. Returning home to find most of his community dead, Al began traveling the multiverse, searching for information about Bolas. While his inability to walk on land hampered his investigation, he was able to eventually find allies, a fisher elf planeswalker named Pophis and an otterling planeswalker named Edlin. Together, Over the years, the three gathered information, spells, and tools, including a spell they believed could freeze the dragon in a shard of amber. Through the grapevine, Pophis would learn of Ravnica and the Gatewatch. The three came to Ravnica, though they never did manage to get in touch with the Gatewatch. Restricted largely to Simic zones, Al eventually met one Kolvar Torin, who had critical information. Bolas was already on Ravnica, already putting some sort of plan into motion. As the War of the Spark began, Al and his friends were off-world, finalizing their plans. Al provided Pophis with a number of protective enchantments. Al could not leave the water after all, so Pophis would have to be the one to take on Bolas. Pophis departed first, determined to slay the dragon. Al and Edlin followed not long after, but found themselves not in the Simic oceans as they intended, but out on the streets. Edlin was able to drag Al, with the help of some other planeswalkers, into a nearby building, and there, sheltered, they waited. In the aftermath of the battle, Al and Edlin found Pophis among the dead. Sad for the loss of his friend, but satisfied with Nicol Bolas's death, Al moved on with his life, eventually settling on Pophis's home plane of Ebrark, where the merfolk provides magical services for his deceased friend's community. From time to time, the merfolk still planeswalks, exploring the worlds and searching for new spells. Gam has managed to make one of the best kinds of fanfiction, one that tells its own story while still being connected to, yet not interfering with, the canon narrative. Al's story likely reflects several of the nameless planeswalkers shown in War of the Spark. How many of them had encountered Bolas before? How many had known of the Tyrant of Worlds and planned to end his ambitions? We'll never know, of course, but with Al, we can imagine what one of them could have been and how their story might have played out. In second place, we have Ross's submission, Dormouse. Upon the cold plain of Kaldheim, where the roots and branches of the World Tree reach like a mother yearning to swaddle their kin within their boughs, lies the home of the diminutive Dormouse. There, among the nexus of many worlds, these little mice consumed the sap, nibbled the leaves, and chewed upon the seeds of the World Tree, and in their consumption consumed the sights and insights of many worlds. The branches they nibbled were paths into other planes, and each root a gateway to new sights. Collectively, they shared a connection that had grown in symbiotic parallelism with the World Tree. Where the roots of the World Tree drank the sweet waters of shores unknown, so too did the Dormouse. And in those sunlight marches, where the leaves of that nexus of worlds supped upon the sun rays, so too could you find the Dormouse in those rays of light. The Dormouse could travel the multiverse and enter the infinite together as a group or as an individual, but all were bound to that same rootway home. The Dormouse has made its homes in the trees of countless worlds, from temple gardens to botanical sanctums. These little mice enjoy a freedom not many get to experience, and enjoy it they do. From playing in the vines of Yavimaya to the sky claves of Zendikar, they are found making mirth and living in the shadows of greater things, yet their home always calls, and in time they return to the boughs of countless plains. There's a lot here that I like a great deal. Firstly, while there are non-human planeswalkers, non-humanoid planeswalkers are exceedingly rare. We've got, 2 dragons, a sphinx, and a bug, right? I also like the idea of one spark being shared among multiple individuals. Maybe the dormouse is a hive mind. Who knows? It's adorable. The idea of a regular, easily overlooked rodent being a planeswalker, or even many of them being planeswalkers that regularly jump between worlds, just seems like the kind of thing one could easily make a few short stories on. Adorable, adventurous, or horrifying. I like the concept a lot, and I enjoyed reading this one. And finally, the number 1 entry, and this contest's winner is Yes's Ugru, 6 Fingers. Born on the city plain of Ravnica, Ugru the Vidalcan was abandoned as a child for his deformities and taken in by the Scab clan of the Gruul. Given the name Ugru by his adoptive family, and the epithet 6 Fingers, for the number of fingers he had on each hand, the Vidalcan initially found himself having a hard time fitting in with the Gruul way of life. Thanks to his frail frame, Ugru couldn't reasonably be expected to become a Gruul warrior, so the Vidalcan was initiated into the shamanistic practices, only to find his evocations failing, and any shamanistic trinkets he wielded shattering in his hands. Soon, however, it came to light that Ugru possessed a potent gift. He had an ability to repel and disrupt magic, meaning he was perfectly suited for sabotaging the enchanted creations of civilization. This gift was further enhanced by the wards and hexes tattooed onto his flesh after undergoing the Gruul trials of adulthood. Ugru's spark would ignite during the War of the Spark, when the Vidalcan was fighting off the Eternals alongside his fellow Gruul. Though, thanks to the immortal sun, his first planeswalk would not happen until a short while after his spark ignited, and he was sent hurtling through the multiverse. Ugru landed in Palandius on Esper, caught in unfamiliar lands and surrounded by people who spoke a language he did not understand. Ugru took the only action that made sense to him, the Gruul action. Empowered by his anti-magic abilities and his Gruul training, Ugru easily overwhelmed any force sent to restrain him, and the city's security eventually opted to simply open the path out of the city, letting him go. Ugru would wander the glass shores of the Sea of Unknowing until he reached a Valeran outpost. Hungry and exhausted, the Vidalcan would be nursed back to health by the scout assigned to the outpost, Niella, and despite not being able to understand her, Ugru paid back her kindness by assisting in the outpost's upkeep. Eventually, the outpost would be visited by one Sor Variak, a mage coroner who came seeking Ugru. Using his own abilities to gift Ugru with the languages of Alara, Variak offered the Vidalcan an accord. He would return Ugru to his home in exchange for the Vidalcan providing protection as the mage visited an ill Vidalcan, one of the Seekers of Karamat. Ugru agreed and traveled alongside Sor to the Arcane Sanctum, standing guard. Variac, however, appeared to be taking a suspiciously long time in his meeting, so Ugru peeked inside, discovering a horrifying scene. Variac was practically dissecting the Vedalken, intending to extract valuable knowledge from the dying seeker. Ugru and Sor had a brief struggle, and the Sanctum's guards were summoned, causing Variac to flee, not through a door or a window, but through the blind eternities. Sor Variac, it turned out, was a Planeswalker, and on the mage's slipstreams, Ugru followed. The pair ended up on Tarkir, in a mortuary temple, where Sor explained to Ugru the nature of Planeswalkers, and offered him another deal. Variac would serve as a guide, and Ugru would serve as a bodyguard, while the two traveled the multiverse, seeking items Variac desired. Over the following weeks, the two would travel across the plains. On Ravnica, Variac retrieved valuable Lazotep. On Innistrad, it was Moonsilver. For a brief time, the pair went their separate ways, but Ugru would join Variac again on a trip to the shattered plain of Bakara. Here, after a deal with a dragon, Variac attempted to extract secrets from the astronomer Iliatux. The exchange is interrupted, but Sor Variac had already acquired what he sought. In the astronomer's mind, Variac had discovered something that he called the Guild Pact effect, and turned to Ugru, asking if he would like to become a god. Phew, there is a lot to Ugru. Seriously, a lot. I had to summarize the vast majority of this character's story because otherwise this video would be much longer. Yes provides a lot of details on Ugru. Seriously, there's effectively a Wikipedia page going on here, and it's quite impressive. It's clear to me that this character and his story were crafted with a lot of love and care. I'm told that Ugru will be a character in some fanfiction at some point. If so, I certainly look forward to reading it. That is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed hearing about these characters, perhaps you'll enjoy reading about them too. All of the character entries are going to be compiled into a PDF that should hopefully be available by the end of the week, which, of course, will be posted over on my Discord. You can also join the Discord if you're interested in participating in future writing contests. You can also join the Discord if you just want to hang out and chill. Your call, really. Thank you so much for sticking through to the end. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.